What is good, everybody? Today we will be discussing the long history of corruption and some, of course, recently breaking news brought to you by Robbie Jaeger, by the one and only Robbie Jaeger. Let's talk about it. What is going on, everybody? Thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC. And of course, as always, I'm your humble host, Niko House. Today I have with me the one, the only member. He's a part of Scoop Gang, but you know, in Scoop Gang, we got different divisions of Scoop Gang. We got the financial division, we got the political corruption division, we got the election integrity division, but we got the head of the financial division of Scoop Gang in the building today. All right, Robbie Jaeger is back in the building, doing what he does, breaking news and getting his work stolen. What's good, bro?
What's up, man? How you doing?
Bro, you know, chilling like a villain on penicillin, bro. You know, how about you, man? How you been?
Can't complain, man. Just working.
Bro, you always working. You always working.
Always working.
And that's why, once again, as soon as some little something drops about the Sunrise Movement, the same Sunrise Movement, by the way, that you have actually been reporting on as far as their financial corruption longer than anybody else. In fact, you're the only one out of those who do financial corruption journalism. You're the only one who even reported on it, from what I can see. You caught something, once again, that nobody else caught. Can you go ahead and let us know about that breaking news?
Sure. So just a couple of days ago, I broke that Sunrise Movement had just released their 2019 tax returns, which showed the group brought in over $3.8 million in anonymous donations that year, which was 6 times their 2018 total. So here's the breakdown. Small donors made up less than half. They only made up 42%, or $1.6 million of Sunrise Movement's donations for that year. But on the other hand, 6 donors made up 35%, or $1.3 million, with all those 6 donors giving 6-figure donations. And then the rest was made up of just about 33 donors giving anywhere between $5,000 and $75,000 a piece. So a few things just at a glance. You know, number one, it should be noted that Sunrise Movement is a 501c4, which means that they are a dark money group by default, meaning that they don't have to disclose the identities of their donors, and they don't do that here. They do, however, give us some amounts, which is how we're able to come up with this kind of a breakdown. Obviously, for the thing that sticks out and that should stick out for anybody that actually follows Sunrise Movement and knows about them is that for a group that claims to be grassroots funded, so to speak, or quote unquote, and they love to say that, small donors only made up less than 42%. It's not a good look. I mean, it's just not. And obviously, the 6 donors making up over a third of your donations for that year, also not a good look. So and a lot of people might say, well, those 5,000, can't you count those as small donations? Blah blah blah. No, we're not going to count. We're not going to count them as small donations because Sunrise Movement didn't count them as
first
small
of all,
donations.
if I donate $5,000 to anything or anybody, we got to be married now, bro. That's a lot of damn money, dog. What?
And this is what I said the other night. Like, I don't know about a lot of people, but coming from somebody that's never had $5,000 to donate to anything in his entire life,
not even my damn self,
it would be, I'd be hard pressed as defining that as a small donation. So that's number one. Number two is kind of, where'd the money come from, right? So the 1.6 million is small donors, fair enough. But these 6 donors, who are they? And quite honestly, we won't know. We don't know. And because of a couple of factors, like, again, Sunrise Movement doesn't have to tell us. So the only way for us to find out is if these donors are not individuals and they're actually other nonprofits, because they'll eventually have to file their taxes. And while they won't have to disclose who gave them money, they do have to disclose where they send their money.
That's true.
At least when it comes to making grants. to other organizations. So if another nonprofit gave Sunrise Movement some money, they will have to report it. So we can find out that way, and that's what I've been doing, not just with Sunrise, but with everybody. That's how you find stuff like that.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate, Robbie.
Sure.
Which is very difficult in this scenario. But Robbie, didn't they use that money to get a bunch of political action and changes done? That's a lot of money, right? They had to, because there's no way that they raised almost $4 million. Or excuse me, my apologies. $4 million, almost 3.8. You telling me they did nothing? $4 million to do nothing, Robbie? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, you know what? As far as the tax documents show you, it doesn't really give you much detail on that either. I mean, it does show you, which we already knew about because of the FEC reporting, which was much more current, or at least it was for a time. We know for a fact that they gave over $450,000 to their PAC Super PAC hybrid that they have, which we'll actually talk about more in a second, because it does get more relevant once we get into the donor that we do know about, the Sunrise Movement. But other than that, they paid about $650,000, I think is what it says in salaries. But the rest of the money, it's kind of hard to see where it goes. They didn't make any grants to any other organizations that you can see. So, again, it's not all Sunrise Movement's fault as far as why they're not giving us this information, because quite honestly, this is the way these laws are written, and they take full advantage of them. Which was
so that
kind
would
of
be kind of their fault, though. Like, they could be.
Well, that's kind of, it is. I mean, they choose to do it this way. They don't have to do it this way. Which was also one of my biggest gripes that kind of drew me towards Sunrise Movement. They caught them on my radar because they were really talking heavy about a lot of other political candidates during the Democratic primaries about them taking dark money or having dark money groups support them, when in fact that they were doing the same thing the entire time. And I mean, the proof is out now.
Now, I have another question for you. Just playing devil. Well, no, this isn't playing devil's advocate. This is playing the devil. 2018, you said they had six times less. They had 1/6 of what they made in 2019. Now, as we know, which would be kind of surprising given the uprising of the quote unquote the new progressives, the Justice Democrats, brand new Congress, all advocating for the Sunrise Movement, and then getting behind the Green New Deal. Now, 2019 comes. They raised almost $4 million. A lot of dark money groups. 35%, you said, raised 1.3 million with six-figure donations. And all of a sudden they decide to back the guy who said he wanted to make sure, right? He grabbed the camera, shook it, twisted the lens to make sure zoom in. It's like, in case you were wondering, I will not ban fracking. I will not support a Green New Deal. Obviously, by default, he's not going to support the off-fat. He actually didn't, so he's not going to get off of fossil fuel either. So this, doesn't it begin to kind of look like a payoff, Robbie?
It doesn't look good at all, man. I mean, because this, from what you said, and that was another thing. They got on to the Bernie Biden supposed task force, right? With Varsini Prakash, their executive director, being a member of that task force on climate, right? You remember that. And then they got absolutely nothing out of it and still told everybody to endorse, or they still endorsed him, even after Biden basically said thanks but no thanks to all of their suggestions. And since then has done absolutely nothing but make everybody involved look like a complete and total idiot. And prior to that,
look, at least the donors who weren't the six donors who,
Well,
at least the small donors look like idiots right now, because I was never.
Well, here's the thing, man, is that these six donors are more than likely, it's hard to speculate. I mean, we know a couple of them, or at least we know a couple of the organizations.
It's not that hard to speculate, Robbie.
What?
It's not that hard to speculate. I feel like
but here's the thing, though, is that I reported this a while back, and actually I'm not even the one that technically broke this. I mean, I found it within some literature that was leaked by the Washington Free Beacon. For anybody that don't know what Democracy Alliance is, it's essentially an anonymous group of like 120 some odd millionaires and billionaires that literally drop billions of dollars every election cycle, influencing policy by donating to dark money groups, donating to super PACs, and stuff like this. And they have an entire network. They have a bunch of sponsored organizations. You can go to their website and see what they are. But here's the most important thing, and the thing that kind of let me know, all right, they're all in with the establishment, at least from a financial perspective, is because you can place the Sunrise Movement's co-founder and executive director, Varshini Prakash, at Democracy Alliance's spring conference in 2019 during this same year, doing a roundtable discussion with Democracy Alliance president and their chairman of the board, along with a couple of other peoples, talking about what it takes to win in 2020 and defeat Trump. And it says join partners in a discussion about the critical role that the Democracy Alliance must play in the short term to lay a foundation for 2020, as well as making the long-term multi-year investments to build progressive political power and sustain it. That's basically saying, hey, we need to have a discussion about all the groups that I need you to direct these millionaires and billionaires that make this elusive and basically anonymous donor club that again spends billions influencing policy and influencing elections. You don't go to them for any other reason other than to get some money.
Right? You don't go to them for advice. It's not like they're
you don't get invited there unless you're going to get some money.
Because you've signaled to them that you're willing to play the game. In order
they have super strict privacy. Like, you are not allowed to let anybody know like really where you're at, what you're doing. You're definitely not allowed to release the identities of anybody else at the conference, anything like that. Like, they are super enigmatic, and there's lots of powerful people that make up that. And one of them is actually Sunrise Movement's biggest individual donor, if these numbers are solid, and that's George Soros via his Open Society Foundation.
Now, you've come under some. Well, I won't even call it. So now there's this anti-Semitic thing being put out there, which, by the way, I was actually 2016. I said something. I was speaking about the Koch brothers and George Soros, and somebody had called me anti-Semitic, and I was talking about also, I think at some point the Rothschilds too. We were talking about just billionaires who influenced the political process, and somebody called me anti-Semitic. I actually had no idea that either of them were Jewish, because all billionaires, especially the ones who are trying to use their money to disproportionately influence the outcome of any election, are bad. They're bad. They can't be a billionaire without exploiting somebody in this country. That's just, in the world. That's just how it works. And yet, Soros himself, ironically, was a literal Nazi who used to snitch on his own Jewish people. And when he was asked about it on 60 Minutes if he regretted it, he said no. He's very clear about that, actually. And when this gets brought up to you, this point seems to often be ignored. And also, it's irrelevant because what the hell does that have to do with his influence in elections? What's him being Jewish have to do with anything to do with the Sunrise Movement or his history of disproportionately trying to influence the outcome of elections and political activism?
I think that typically, more often than not, the anti-Semitism take, whenever you bring up like a George Soros, is kind of bullshit, because they're just trying to find a way to dismiss what you're saying. But again, like you said, Soros, the Kochs, they all spend, the billionaire class, billions of dollars every election cycle trying to influence his policy, and quite honestly, I think that people should really look into what Soros invests in. It's because, look, again, somebody bringing up his religion or
he doesn't practice
or anything, it doesn't matter, because none of that stuff is relevant to the conversation, which is the fact that he deliberately spends a shit ton of his money every year, not just influencing policy, but influencing our elections, which again, if a foreign entity, so to speak, was spending this kind of money trying to influence our elections, we'd be sanctioning them.
No. It doesn't even have to be foreign, Robbie. So here's once again, the inconsistency. What is the whole reason that we don't like the Koch brothers on the left?
Because of oil and gas money.
Because of, not just oil and gas money, but literally because of this exact same thing. Because of the exact thing that you just revealed about the Sunrise Movement. That's literally like, oh man, look at all this influence the Koch brothers have on this one specific, because that's what they were known for. Hell, the movie The Campaign, The Campaign with Will Ferrell and and Zach Galifianakis, they're like literally the Koch brothers. They were like a caricature of the Koch brothers. That's what they're known for. But whenever George Soros does it, it's anti-Semitic because he calls himself the leftist, or he decided to do it with leftist organizations instead of the libertarian or conservative organizations that the Koch brothers attempt to influence. Once again, it's just like the Democratic and Republican parties. Like everybody, stop pretending that they're not the same because they have a label.
Because they do the same. They operate the same way. They throw their wealth trying to influence our policy in our country at an electoral level. And I mean, right here, people ask, well, why is Soros money bad? I'll tell you why. Let's listen to some of his investments that he still has right now. For one thing, he had a massive stake in Palantir, the InQtel-backed data mining company or big data firm whose CEO Alex Karp is on the record as saying that yes, the DoD uses our technology to kill people from time to time by AI guiding drone bombs to God knows where. All right, and then we'll see. Oh, look, he's got an investment in United Health. He's got investments in obviously Amazon, Google. Let's look here. This is great. He's got investments in Energy Transfer Partners.
Combo couches in the building.
Energy Transfer Partners owns the Dakota Access Pipeline. And
while he is literally funding the Sunrise Movement, who is refusing to even challenge the pipeline spills that Robbie broke with North Carolina Colonial Pipeline. So, do y'all think that there might be a connection here as to why the Sunrise Movement, who is dedicated to climate change and environmental justice, is not talking about the pipelines that are literally connected to the billionaires funding them? You don't see that's surprising?
He's invested in Magellan. He's invested in Magellan Midstream, another oil and gas company. He's invested in CrowdStrike. Big surprise.
Oh shit.
Okay. So exactly. It doesn't matter if you are on the left, if you're in a progressive space, why would you want money from somebody that invests in those things, willingly invests? And he tried to write off the investment in Palantir as something that a money manager did without him knowing, and they held that investment for forever without him knowing what Palantir was or what it did, which is
you're not allowed to invest that type of money without an approval, a seal of approval.
I mean, come on, and it's just like this type of it's why is it that it's okay to report on Center for American Progress or conversely, American Enterprise Institute, right? Or Karl Rove's American Crossroads. That's all fair game. Because we already know those institutions are corrupt. They're in your face with it, right? They're inherently corrupt. Sunrise Movement and smaller organizations like them, they're almost more dangerous because they have this brand new Congress. They have the veneer that they're some kind of grassroots, people-led organizations that are for you, and they're fighting in the streets for you. And you know what? A lot of the local hubs,
are trying to do good work a lot of the time.
Exactly. And I'm not even trying to say that they're not. National level, this is what this discussion is about. And nationally, there's just a huge discrepancy there that it's really kind of hard to reconcile with, especially when you look at their numbers. I mean, think about it. How can you really call yourself a grassroots when you're less than half of your donors are small, but also the fact that you're getting money from one of the largest Democratic Party mega donors to ever do it, one of the most influential Democratic Party mega donors. You're showing up the Democracy Alliance conferences. You're taking money not only from, I mean, Soros gave them another $250,000 during the election cycle through their PAC.
We haven't even seen what the 2020 numbers look like. Good God.
And they even took $500,000 from the 1630 fund, the dark money group that spent over $60 million funding pro-Biden super PACs in 2020. They were a top 5 spender
Damn,
in the 2020
bro.
election.
That's
So,
crazy.
I mean,
do you think that might have had some influence on them ignoring all the policies they say they advocate for in order to push Biden, Robbie? That couldn't be possible because they're leftists, and progressive leftist organizations don't do things like that.
So when you ask me about if it's a payoff, I mean, there's lots of money coming in, and you know what? They don't want to talk about. Look,
you requested some tax documents. You requested some tax documents, and what they tell you? Have they gotten back to you?
Yeah, they got. Well, I mean, now look, I know that they don't like to be critiqued, right? And I know that people don't like to critique them. But again, it's important to know when a organization that is supposedly grassroots and this, that, and a third is being paid for in large part by some of the most influential donors in the Democratic Party, and they're not telling you. And the same people they supposedly don't like. They're pissing down your back and telling you that it's raining, and to me that's not right. I mean, just be upfront about what you are.
It's
what
even
you're
worse, bro. They're pissing down your back and telling you it's Don Julio, but it's really Jose Cuervo. That's disgusting, bro. That's some of the worst shit you could do. So listen, real quick, man.
Sure.
I feel like we have to go back to the election too, because the signs were present, and I talked about this yesterday on my show when I was covering this. Everybody wondered why we were talking, because we covered the story where they tried to give Tulsi Gabbard a D-. Remember, they released the grades, right? Bernie ended up number 1 with never, ever introducing any climate change legislation ever. Elizabeth Warren was a B- and was like number 2 when she introduced, like, literally her solution to climate change was green bombs, like a greener military force. And the only person out of the entire group that actually introduced climate change legislation, and also just happened to be the best climate change legislation in the history of the world, and also just happened to be that her career was sparked from climate change and environmental justice. That's why she got into politics, which is Tulsi Gabbard. She got a D-. And there was no explanation. The explanation was, well, we know she introduced the Off Fossil Fuels Act, but we question her dedication to get off of fossil fuels because she doesn't support the Green New Deal, which doesn't ban fossil fuels, nor does it ban fracking, which Tulsi's Off Act did. So everybody assumed that we were trying to defend Tulsi, but what we've been trying to tell people for the longest time is that, like, no, you need to fuck the Tulsi shit. Why would they do that to somebody if their goal is to push the most progressive candidate on quote unquote climate change and environmental justice? And
it's not about
the numbers were there. You were reporting on the donations then. We saw how they were treating the candidates who were actually good on climate change then, and yet, and still, here we are, people were acting surprised at something, and like, I feel that we should have already known. What do you have to say about that?
It was the red flag. It was one of the first red flags, and this was before their first, before they first got that $250,000 in Soros money, and this is before they took the $500,000 from 1630. It became very obvious very early on that the discussion that they wanted to have wasn't necessarily so much about climate change as it was about the Green New Deal, which I feel like
nothing. So basically nothing.
Well, but it's also really disingenuous because of the fact that the discussion should be climate change by any means or the best means necessary, not only climate change only by the Green New Deal. That feels extremely narrow-minded, and it feels agenda-driven.
And I want to cut you off, but I want to, because I know a lot of new people are just now like hearing about this stuff with the Sunrise Movement. And we say the Green New Deal, and we have the assumption and the knowledge to know that, like, the Green New Deal is trash. So in and of itself, that is the problem. Also the problem with what the Sunrise Movement is doing. The Sunrise Movement raised millions and millions and millions of dollars in individual donations and dark money to support a 12 bullet point piece of shit that didn't even achieve its goal, nor was it actionable. Whereas they had every other organization before the Green New Deal was introduced was backing the Off Act. I want to say even at the point, including the Sunrise Movement. And then when they started doing the grades, once again, fast forward, they actually, I don't know if you know this, bro. I went back and checked. I wanted to check on the grades. Yeah, man, they deleted that page, man. They deleted it, bro. They deleted it. They felt a little bit guilty.
Well, I mean, they released their tax returns and didn't make it. They didn't announce it at all. They didn't. So and this is all par for the course. But but here's the thing. Like, you're right. I mean, there was already some pretty stiff fossil fuel, like the off act, man. It was sitting right there, and sure, you want to debate up and down the merits of that, but if climate change is what's most important to you, you can't sit here and deny that there was any better legislation that was sitting there at the moment that was any better. And the Green New Deal is full of it's all stick, no carrot, right? It's, hey, we're gonna do this, that, and third, but there's never any how. There's never really any how. They just say this is what we're gonna do by this date. By 2030 we'll be whatever, and there's really no actual policy. No legislation has ever actually been written. There's been no bill actually filed that I know of, and if it has been, it's short. You know what I mean? So like,
just the resolution that never got passed, and she never reintroduced it. On top of that, so it didn't even get passed, and she didn't even reintroduce it.
Well, here's the thing. Here's my bone to pick right now is that her and Markey just reintroduced it right the other day, apparently, or they're going to reintroduce it or whatever it was. And then on Earth Day, they're, sitting here taking selfies on a boat together, like they just won something.
Yo, and I gotta tell you this, bro. CNN just got some riveting breaking news, man.
What's that?
Jill Biden is so much so just not Melania Trump that it's impressive, and we should all be worried about that. Like, that's really important news. So like, we just want to take this opportunity to malign this immigrant woman who was already probably a slave to her goddamn husband's life as it was, just because she was existing.
Yeah, mainstream media is a fucking joke, right? Which is why they don't. And so is you know what? And here's the thing about.
Go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say what you're gonna say. I know.
The Sunrise Movement, because here, dude, check it out.
So I thought you were gonna say so is independent media a lot of the times nowadays.
Well, a lot of times, yeah, we are too. But and look, independent media, we're some funny dudes, man. Like, I'm not gonna lie, there's some funny shit going. But a little bit. But for real, I mean, the problem here is that why are you celebrating? Why is AOC and Ed Markey celebrating like they've won something by introducing a resolution that's non-binding and really is nothing, when largest pipeline spill possibly in the United States history is going on right now, and you haven't even said a word about it. Markey hasn't said a word about it. Sunrise Movement hasn't said a word about it. Bro,
you know what's crazy? I know it's gonna sound so off topic, but it's not. It's like really looking, because everybody thought that Markey's wheelhouse was green, was quote unquote climate change, which by the way just didn't seem to be the truth based off of his past voting. By the way, like, for people who don't know, but like, y'all swore to God this man was gonna be better than Joe Kennedy, bro. Y'all swore he was gonna be so much better than Joe Kennedy. And Joe Kennedy, by the way, was saying Green New Deal didn't go far enough, even though he was one of the first sponsors. Like, this man was actually saying Markey isn't good enough because he's still taking those fossil fuel money. I am asking for all super PACs and dark money and fossil fuel money to be banned. Markey said he would not accept that. And y'all are like, but he said Green New Deal. Oh my God. And this is what we talk about, bro. Stop with the buzzwords. Do the work. Stop with the buzzwords. Yeah. Do the work. And watch the MCSC network, because we'll do the work for you.
And it just baffles the hell out of me that so many, in so-called environmental activist groups are just so fucking out of touch with pretty much everything. Like, the only time they ever want to protest a pipeline or anything like that is if it's DAPL, because they can fundraise off of that.
Oh no, but they're about to start DAPL back up, so they're gonna stop talking about that soon.
I'm sure they will. Because it's
about they're doing like, hey, shut the fuck up. Not allowed to talk about it no more. That's what's gonna happen.
Look, we just need to come to the realization that Sunrise Movement is, just the scary thing is that they're just getting started, because we haven't seen their 2020 numbers yet, and we won't see them until around this time next year.
Oh no!
If somebody can coerce them into releasing
it's okay.
it.
We gonna see them right before midterms. That's fine. It's
Yeah,
cool.
and
we gonna be doing a lot of. Listen, y'all. I know I'll be trying to get out as many clips as possible. We got so many damn shows, y'all. We trying to get these clips out, but we gonna be exposing a lot of people over the next couple of years. There's gonna be a bunch of clips on Twitter and Instagram just hanging around, and we gonna because they're gonna come back for y'all's money. They are, they do. They do it every 2 years and then every 4 years subsequently.
Oh hell yeah, and they're gonna come for you. And look, when we see Sunrise Movement's 2020 numbers, we're probably gonna see them up around, I would just say, at least 10 million.
Oh man, I actually think it's gonna be
at least, because they're everywhere. They're one of the most prominent nonprofits that you see out there. Whenever we talk about influential dark money, a lot of it's going through Sunrise, because they're everywhere and they're hugely influential.
I would go, I would reach about 15 to 20 million, because in order, so think about the money that AOC raised, which, by the way, I think that money is largely responsible for a lot of the money that Sunrise Movement got. That's one of the people I was going to speculate.
Yeah, no, well, they leech off of each other for sure. Sunrise Movement and AOC are.
Yeah, but so that's just AOC money, and AOC raised 18 million her goddamn self for her election that she has a guaranteed chance of winning.
Pretty much.
Now you got to couple that with, Sunrise is going to play ball, and they're going to push, because effectively, I feel like Sunrise Movement is part of this conversation we had about the fourth industrial revolution, and they are dedicated to getting kids to be okay with the bullshit that we are seeing in that department. So I think that they're going to get enough money to sustain the fact that Joe Biden is going to be such an abysmal failure. And because, like you said, they don't have to release that information until years down the line. But by that time, the damage will be done and the money will have been spent making the influence that they needed to make, that it will be too late to change in that moment, or it could take years to change. You get what I'm saying? So I think it's going to be between 15 and 20 million.
It could be. Because look, they were just taking massive dark money from big names right in our face with the FEC reporting, because the super PACs have to report that. So if they were just doing that, saying whatever, just right after they were running ads on, making the big stink about, Pete Buttigieg's, what was it? His, what was it? The wine caves or whatever the fuck. Maybe that was, that was Warren. I might be confused.
No, it was no.
All his dark money.
Buttigieg talking about the wine caves,
courting billionaires, stuff like that. All these billionaire friends, his billionaire pals, and his dark money pals.
Yeah, I don't got none of those. I just take the most money from securities and exchange industry, than any of these candidates. Even though I started the CFPB.
But the problem. But that was the message Sunrise was pushing.
Yeah.
The entire time was that Pete Buttigieg is billionaire funded and all of his billionaire friends, and the whole time they're taking money from the billionaire. You know what I'm saying?
Not billionaires, but the billionaire.
The one that when you say his name, it's oh great,
it's like Voldemort.
Here we go again. We're gonna talk about Soros again.
It's like Voldemort.
And
it's like Voldemort.
It's dude, I wouldn't have to talk about Soros so much if he didn't have his fucking money every fucking where I looked. Okay, that's the only thing. If his money wasn't there,
pause. Say it again, Robbie. Say it again. Say it one more time for the people in the back.
Straight up, man. I get sick and tired of seeing the same names everywhere.
We wouldn't have to talk about Soros so much if his money wasn't everywhere. We wouldn't have to talk about AOC so much if she wasn't always trying to pop up on TV and talk shit. We wouldn't have to talk about Biden so much if he wasn't always fucking up. We wouldn't have to talk about TYT if they weren't always putting out bullshit and taking money they shouldn't be taking. Why don't y'all understand it? Y'all think we saying the same shit over and over and over again. You know why we have to say the same shit over and over again? Because we say it over and over again and y'all motherfuckers don't want to listen.
Yes, because I've been saying over and over again that the Sunrise Movement is not what they say they are on a national level, for some time now. And I'm sure that this story will be totally ignored, and all of the criticisms of taking Soros money will be totally disregarded, and made excuses out of, even though it's very clear that, hey guys, if I was somebody that actually believed in the message that Sunrise Movement was giving me, that you are a people, grassroots funded network of individuals just like me on the ground trying to change the world, $27 at a time, And then I would have a huge problem with, forget the investment side of Soros, even though he has problematic investments. I would have a huge problem of just having my organization taking large sums of money from one of the most influential donors to the party that's kept the policies that I'm pushing for underneath their heel for decades. And that's their mission, is to continue to try to do that. And Soros is a part of that. And now that everybody can see, it's not just him. I'm sure there's plenty of other billionaire elites that are shooting money over the Sunrise Movement. And again, we won't find out about them until 2021 or 2022, and the damage will already be done.
Appreciate you, man. Let everybody know where they can find you at, Robbie.
You can find me. I break a lot of news on Twitter. So Robbie the Fire. You can find me on Rockfin for my articles. Again, guys, just stay tuned. MCSC is really basically just waiting for an update on the Colonial Pipeline issue. It could be the biggest one in history. So just stay locked on the MCSC network, because as soon as something breaks, we'll have it.
Along the same line, so Colonial Pipeline stuff, be on the lookout for. We got a few people looking into the For the People Act too. Robbie obviously already dealing the financial stuff. He's already doing Robbie shit. But on the other side of that fence, they're the voting stuff. The way that they're trying to change rules in language and try to guise it as, actual election integrity legislation. Like, let's be honest, everybody. If it was good for us, they wouldn't be doing it. That's not how this shit works. So, it's true, right? They don't do shit. If they really wanted good election integrity legislation, why didn't they just pass the Secure America's Elections Act?
Hey, spoiler alert, it's not that great.
Either what? It's not that what?
It's not that great. Like I said, I've read through the campaign finance stuff, and that's what I do.
You do that shit first, immediately.
It's not that great.
Yeah,
it's a whole bunch of whistles,
and a lot of it, which I think they actually know is going to happen, but they're trying to make it seem as if they're fighting. A lot of it is going to be destroyed by various Supreme Courts in various states, because it's overreach in a lot of ways. Because they're trying to even influence like local elections in some ways, and you can't.
It would change the game, just not the way y'all think.
Yeah, it will consolidate power effectively, because that's what they're basically trying to make it so that, because obviously they got the Republicans have their way of cheating, and the Democrats have their way of cheating, but they are claiming to deal with interstate cross-check, for example, but they don't talk about the fact that within primaries, Democrats remove people from the voter rolls for no reason whatsoever. And that's not talked about, discussed, and there's no mechanism to hold anybody accountable for that. So, why is it that the election that Republicans are generally known for stealing, which, by the way, don't get it twisted. I know people were like, well, how did Biden win? Because Republicans were actively and openly trying to steal the election for him too. Y'all don't know the Lincoln Project is Republican? You know what I'm saying? Like, they still be stealing elections. It's just y'all don't realize that Biden is a Republican. That's the fucking punchline.
Realize that by now.
That's the fucking punchline. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of MCSC Casa. Go follow Robbie on Twitter and on Rockfin, Roblet. Fire. Put that in the live chat so y'all can go follow him there. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, always remember, more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.